Joining us now to discuss the news is Thomas Hook, Chief Compliance Officer at Bitstamp USA. Hello there, Thomas. Thanks for joining us. So starting off with India, Bitstamp currently supports instant credit and debit card purchases of cryptocurrencies in India, according to Bitstamp's website. Now, I know you're part of Bitstamp's USA branch, but I'm wondering if you might be familiar with your compliance knowledge, what India's crypto ban, what happens now?
Thank you for having me, by the way. I think we wait and see. I think we have to see what, actually comes down on regulation, and everyone's going to have to react accordingly. We're no strangers to this type of news in this industry, so we have to be nimble and adjust.
Do you foresee a scenario where governments ban crypto and start seizing private crypto?
It's hard to predict the future here, but I think that most governments are starting to see the utility and the mainstream swell of cryptocurrency. So I doubt that you're going to see too many countries ban it. I think instead they're going to have to put in place common sense regulation to allow folks to continue to feel comfortable with it and continue to invest and be a part of the industry.
Right. Well, we're told that crypto wallets are very secure. We're told that, your keys, your crypto. I wonder, though, can governments seize crypto that is privately held in wallets?
So it's a really good question. I think just as they can seize assets in traditional banking institutions, that can happen in the crypto space. I think you see it in the news that law enforcement agencies in the U.S. or in other jurisdictions are seizing crypto assets, and that can happen in a variety of ways.
And maybe you could go through some of them.
Sure. So I think there's really two different trains of thought here, or two different lines. Obviously, there are two different ways folks can keep their assets. You can have a self-custody private wallet, or you can use a secure exchange custody provider where you keep your digital assets. Along the lines of a self-custody private wallet, the only way to access that is with your private key. Without the private key, you can't access it. So what would happen in those instances is if law enforcement identified that those digital assets were used within a crime or proceeds of a crime, they could apply for a seizure warrant and essentially compel the owner of that wallet to provide the personal key to access those funds and transfer them to a wallet that is in the control of the authorities. On the exchange side or the custody provider side, it's really no different than traditional banking institutions. Law enforcement would, again, have a seizure warrant. They would issue that warrant instead of on the individual who would have access to that, only have private access to their wallet. They would issue it to the institution, to the exchange or the custody provider, and request that institution would have to abide by that seizure warrant and transfer those assets to the authorities to, again, a wallet under their control.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about in the case of Craig Wright? Worst case scenario for him is that he loses the case and ends up owing the Kleiman estate lots of dollars and doesn't have the money. But Wright also told CoinDesk that nothing is in his name if he does have the money. And so if he is sitting on billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, how could authorities seize the money if the person is not cooperating?
So it becomes a tricky circumstance. If it's held in a private non-custodial wallet and they can't gain access to that private key, then they kind of are out of luck. Think of it like if you're someone who doesn't trust banks and you put your money under your mattress or you bury it in your backyard somewhere. If the authorities want your funds, they've got to get the location out of your brain, right? What they would likely do is, hold them in contempt, bring other charges to try and get the individual to provide the information that they're required to do so, and go from there. But it does have its difficulties.
Mm-hmm. Well, in his case as well, I mean, he has written several keys and wallets that he's written and submitted various wallets that he allegedly owns. Is there any way to get access to them if he is not cooperative? And some of the wallets that he says he owns has been proven to belong to, for instance, the Mt. Gox hacker. So it's unclear that he is telling the truth on whether or not he owns all the wallets that he says he does.
Right. I mean, that's certainly, if law enforcement's looking to seize assets from somebody, they have done forensic analysis on their end, using forensics tools to kind of trace a variety of information to identify, where assets go and where they're held, but also they can use information, fact patterns, transaction patterns, media information, things they know about an individual, IP, geolocation, lots of different things to identify and kind of triangulate who the owner of a wallet is. So they'd be able to confirm his ownership to some extent, or not. But ultimately, they would have to prove to if the federal law enforcement wanted to seize those assets, they would have to prove to a court of law that those assets, they have a right to seize them, and that those assets do belong to this individual, and then serve that. So there would be some due
Right.
process that would have to come up.